Today I wanted to film my September TBR for you guys and go over the books that I read in August. So it'll be my August wrap up. I just had COVID a couple days ago. I might be running out of breath. I probably sound a little bit weird, but I've tried to look as presentable as possible. But man, I also cannot smell or taste anything currently. So no pumpkin spice lattes for Jackie. If you're familiar with how this works, I have a TBR game that I actually make and sell over on Etsy. It's actually my 2nd year anniversary of opening my shop. So it's so crazy to think that 2 years ago is when I started creating this game and selling it, and I am almost at 1,000 sales. So that is just absolutely amazing. Like, I can't believe how this game has just really took off, and something that I make by hand. Every single card that you get is something that I've made by hand. I will be using the game today for myself because I am obsessed with playing it. I really think it is one of the most fun ways to pick a TBR, and I will be having Black Friday sales this year. So if it's something that you've had on your Christmas list, if it's something that you wanted to gift a friend for Christmas, those sales will be coming up in the month of November. If you watched last month's video, you saw me pick my reward and my punishment. This is something fun that I do. Obviously, you don't have to play the game the exact same way that I do, but I picked, if I actually read my entire TBR, I would get to buy a new plant or household item. And if I did not finish my TBR, I would have to hand wash all my dishes for 1 week. Now, this is the 2nd time that I have gotten this prompt. And I think this is like the 2nd time ever that I have completed my entire TBR because I am scared of this prompt. I mean, that's the whole reason that I have these punishments, right? Is because you want to be able to be motivated to read your TBR. So I absolutely did not want to hand wash my dishes for a week. Yes, I've done it most of my life. Yes, I've done it before, but I have been on a like very strict diet that I've been doing on my channel here and everything, and there are a lot of dishes. I am making everything from scratch. I'm fermenting a lot of things. There's no way I want to wash the dishes. So thankfully I beat this card. I technically get to buy a new plant or household item if I would like. But the other day I was putting Little Free Library books. Well, actually Alice and I were going to put them in other people's Little Free Libraries because I do have my own Little Free Libraries. We have been down with COVID, and also my car isn't working right now. There's a lot of things going on in my life right now. But I was using my e-bike, and I have a little bike trailer with it, and Alice and I were like going and just visiting Little Free Libraries like around town and stuff. Anyway, I had taken some books off of my shelf. This is my Little Free Library shelf. And I just threw them in the back with Alice, and she was like looking through them like while I was biking. And then when we got to the one stop and I was putting the books into the Little Free Library, Alice was holding a $50 Barnes & Noble gift card. It was still in the packaging and everything, and I looked it up, and yes, there are $50 on this. So I have plans this month to actually go to Barnes & Noble and buy $50 of books, whether it's for Alice, for me. Eventually they will go in the Little Free Library because all my books go into the Little Free Library when I'm done. I don't keep my physical books. And so that was a great surprise. So I actually think I'm gonna use that as like my reward this month instead of buying like a plant or household item. But yeah, let's talk about the books that I read. So I have my 5 prompts that I picked from last month, and we'll go over quick to do a little wrap up. So we're gonna start with this one first because it was actually a book cover that I picked. This is on Kindle Unlimited, and I did read the ebook from Kindle Unlimited, and then I also had the audio from Libro FM because I'm part of their ALC program. That's actually where I heard of this book. It's called The Other Year by Rhea Frey. Now, this is actually the 2nd book that I've read by her, and I believe I'm going to give this 2 stars. It actually started out very promising because it's books that I like where they have like those alternate timelines, or like what would you do in this instance. So it's about this mom where her like 9-year-old daughter, they go to the beach, in a split second she like can't find her daughter, and from there it's like the book is told from 2 timelines. One where her daughter like was just in the water and comes up fine, and she's like, oh, like what if that happened? Like, what if you drowned? And then the other timeline where, yes, her daughter actually does drown. It sounds so good, and normally I love books like this, but it was not done in the same way as like a book like maybe In Another Life. It was literally just like two separate books going on to each other. So you would have timeline 1, chapter 1, and then the very next chapter was timeline 2, chapter 1. And then you would go back to the first timeline, and then you go to the second timeline, and the first timeline, and second timeline. So you're just reading that whole way through. So you were reading like 2 different books in one book, it felt like. I did prefer the storyline of where she lost her daughter, because at least there was like more emotion. The storyline where she had her daughter still, it was like nothing really happened. Like there was nothing you were anticipating. There was also a very big love triangle in this book, so it was very romance-esque. And I did not like both the main character or her daughter. Her daughter was like a 9-year-old brat, and then this lady just kept not being able to choose which of the millions of men that like wanted her. It just wasn't that good. And unfortunately, I thought the same thing about the other Rhea Frey book that I read. So I don't think I'm gonna read Rhea Frey anymore, I don't know. Then I had read a book you are excited to read. I believe that I picked Yours Truly for this, and I did give it 4 stars. I liked it better than Part of Your World, because I gave Part of Your World 3, but I gave Just for Summer 5. Just for Summer is so good. I just didn't love the characters as much in Yours Truly. I thought I liked Bree in like the first book, because like I really didn't like the characters in the first book, but then she just seems so different in Yours Truly. Like her actual book, I felt like she was portrayed differently than when I read her in the other books as a side character. The ending kind of got to me. I wasn't like super in love with the first half of the book, but I feel like the second half of the book, like it picked up more when we started getting to the end and like things were happening. And so I did enjoy this book. Next we have Read a Book with an Ugly Cover. Now I do have a DNF. I had picked Freddie Mercury's Life in His Own Words because I mean, the cover is kind of ugly. I started reading this, I might have gotten like a quarter of the way through, and I just could not stand the way that this was written, because it's literally just interviews and like things that he has said just thrown together in a book. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's very like clunky and chaotic, and I just did not like it. So I decided to DNF this. And instead I read Small Great Things, because I mean, let's be real, this cover is ugly. And I ended up giving this 4 stars. This is actually my second time reading Small Great Things. Like 9 years ago or something, when I first started getting into reading again, I was trying to find like what I was interested in reading, because I had only read like Nancy Drew and Left Behind and Laura Ingalls Wilder or something growing up. So I knew I liked reading, but I wasn't sure exactly what I liked reading. And so I was trying out all different genres. Small Great Things was like popular at that time, because I just had gone to the library and I had picked up like Big Little Lies, Small Great Things, The Mothers, Behind Closed Doors, and then I think I even read like The Hunger Games and Divergent, because I had never read those before. Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey, like all those types of books. I was reading all of those to try and figure out, and those were all very popular at that moment. I looked back and it looks like I gave this book 2 stars like when I read it so long ago. Didn't remember a thing about it, had no review because I didn't write reviews back then. So a lot of my friends on Patreon, and Lena from Lena's Bookshelf, she was like, I think you would really like this. You really should reread it, especially since you don't remember anything, and see how you feel about it now. And so I did reread it, and my rating did go to a 4. It definitely wasn't a 5-star Jodi, because it did lull in the middle, and there were a couple of things that I was like, I just don't get this, or why she wrote it this way, you know, that kind of thing. But in general, it was really good, and I actually listened, well, I listened to like 50% like earlier on in the month, and then I had to take a break because I had to knock out like more of my TBR really quick, and it was also my buddy read for Patreon. And then I got COVID on Saturday and I was in bed all day long on Saturday, and so I literally just put the earphone in my ear, and I had to keep my eyes closed and my eye mask on because my head was pounding, and I just listened to the other 50% of the book, and I was getting like chills. I mean, it was really good. I loved the second half because I love the court cases. Those are my favorite in Jodi Picoult. So if you don't know what this book is about, even though, I mean, it's like, it feels like a million years old. It's about this Black nurse who was taking care of a baby born to a white supremacist, and the baby dies, which that's all in the beginning. There was like a note in her file that said like no African-American nurses can like work on their baby or touch their baby. And when he was like dying, like she was there, and so it got blamed on her. And I mean, it's a whole thing. Obviously, I'm not explaining it as well as it is, but very good book. Okay, next up, we have Read a Thriller with Toxic Friendships. I read a book from my shelf. It was called The Scandal. Yeah, this I think I'm gonna give this 3 stars because it was better than the other thriller that I read this month that I'll tell you about. But definitely had my interest, and this is like the first physical book that I've read in like forever. I've actually deleted my social media from my phone for the last like 4 weeks. Let me just tell you, it's a really good idea. It's gonna be a video in the future, so I'll talk about that more in another video. But anyway, this is the first time I read a physical book, and I had the attention span to read a physical book. You're following like 3 friends in this book and their husbands or their scandals. There is a random girl that shows up that's pregnant with someone's baby from this town, and she shows up at like one of the ladies' houses and is like, I think your husband might be my baby daddy. So anyway, it's just like a domestic thriller, you know, just kind of normal. There wasn't anything that really stood out. Did I have a good time, and was I reading to get to the end so I could figure out what happened? Yes. Did I get to the end and say, whoa, like this is really cool? No, I said, oh, that's what I thought. So that's one of the problems with this, is just, it was just normal and I already knew what was going to happen. All right, last book that I finished from all my cards. This was Read a Book That You Have Been Anticipating, and I did House of Glass. I actually had this on ebook from NetGalley. This was not good. I'm gonna give this 2 stars. This is one of the most predictable thrillers that I have read in a really long time. I felt like so much of it was extremely boring, and then the last bit, you know, like that last like quarter, like 85%, you know, when you get to that and you're like, okay, I'm starting to find out answers. I'm not even someone that sits and like tries to figure out thrillers. Like I like the ride, you know, the thrill of reading and being like, oh, that's what happened. When you're reading, things just sometimes pop up in your mind. And I was like, well, I mean, this kind of makes sense, but I was like, she's not gonna write it like that. Like that's too easy. She wrote it like that. I guessed every single thing that happened. And this was like before I even hit the 50% mark. I was like, oh, I think this, and this. So that's just what it seems like, but like there's no way that she's gonna do that. So I'm giving it 2 stars because there was nothing original. It was about this like creepy kid that was being blamed for the murder of her nanny, but her nanny was having an affair with her dad. And so both like the dad and the mom were like in this house, and the nanny had like fell through a window, and so no one knew who to blame. Like, was it the dad because this nanny was pregnant by him? Was it the mom because she was jealous? Was it the actual kid because she's this like creepy kid? The author just put way too much focus into one section, and so it's like when you're only telling us like it's this person, like, and you're not talking about anybody else, we obviously know it's not that person. But then she didn't trip me up at all thinking about, oh, what are the 3 other people we're talking about here, and the one that you really don't ever talk about in this book. That's how I feel about that book. Now it's finally time to pick my TBR. I have my draw cards. This is what I use to pick from my deck. I have my deck here, and I put like thriller, reading from your shelf, Kindle. I put some book covers in here. I actually do have a fall deck, but I forgot to print it for myself. I'm probably gonna pick 4 to 5 books, depending upon if I can fit my buddy read into my stack. So for Patreon this month, my buddy read is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Genevieve Rose. I know a lot of people have been raving about this book, and I think it's pretty short, so I'm excited. Let's go ahead. We're gonna draw the first card. Draw from the bottom. Let's draw from the bottom. Ooh, Good Half Gone by Taryn Fisher. I don't remember what this is about. For some reason, I always just think cult but I've already read a book by her, so that's a cult. Iris narrowly escaped her twin sister's fate as a teen, abducted in broad daylight and long gone before she could convince the cops there was anything to investigate. With Piper presumed a runaway and no evidence to go on but Iris's scattered memories, the case quickly goes cold. Ever since that terrible day, Iris' search for Piper has bordered on obsession. Okay, so it's like twins, one goes missing, police. Hopefully that's a good one. I forgot to pick my reward and my punishment. Let me do that quick. I like to always start out with that, so that way when I'm picking the books, I know just how strict should be. Okay, these are the punishments. Let's just quick do a little, you know, like that. Okay, punishment. Okay, so this will be for the future month. It says you cannot read any new releases this month. So that would be my punishment for October if I don't finish my TBR for September. It's not like terrible, but now rewards. Let's just shuffle. Okay, ready? Buy yourself new slippers or PJs. I'm definitely gonna do new slippers. I've been wanting to get new slippers. That's so exciting. Okay, now I really want to do my TBR this month too, because new slippers, can't go wrong with those. Okay, so we have one book. Let's do draw. Roll a die, draw the same number of cards. Oh, that's the one that like, I don't get very often, but like if I draw like a 6, like I'm going to have to read 6 more books plus the 7th book. So I'm gonna do roll a die on here. Ready? So I'm gonna hit roll. 4. Okay, let's pick 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so these are all the ones I have to read. This is from my shelf. Read a most recent release. I think I get to read the new Lucinda Berry. This is definitely the most recent release. So my friend Danny sent me this, surprised me with this just a couple weeks ago. And it is the new Lucinda Berry, but it is signed by Lucinda Berry. I am so excited that I get to read this. This is gonna be so good for like this end of summer, September. Okay, someone knows what they did that summer. They never considered how his wife might react or that by the end of the summer a man would be dead, but Blakely always got her way and the others followed her lead, even when they knew it was dead wrong. The girls had been friends from day one at Camp Pendleton, a haven for gifted children, but their senior summer was different. When Mr. Crosby, the handsome tennis coach, wound up murdered after a reckless lie, Blakely, Grace, Meg, and Thera swore themselves to secrecy and never spoke to each other again. Till now, 20 years later, a sinister note claiming to know what they did brings them back together. Kind of sounds like Pretty Little Liars, but I'm very excited. Also, this cover. I feel like this is gonna be like a month filled with thrillers. Okay, so that was read a most recent release. This is a thriller card. Read a thriller featuring a detective. This might have a detective in it, and this I've actually been wanting to read this month. Maybe it doesn't. I'm gonna have to ask my friend Lena. Of course, it's the day that mowing is happening. Yeah, it will. Yeah, it'll be like just a tiny little like mud room, just a little hallway to like, yeah, drop your shoes and stuff. Okay, brief intermission. I had to talk to the lawnmower guy. I sent a message to Lena to see if this is featuring a detective because I do want to read this month. So hopefully I can make it work with that card. This book is about a shocking crime. A young boy stabbed to death in a Levy Park, but the even greater shock is the accused is Andy's own son, who is the assistant district attorney. So I feel like it's gonna be, I don't want to say it's exactly going to be like a Jodi Picoult book, but I feel like it's going to have those like vibes that I really like. Lena's been trying to get me to read this for forever, and I know that she's always like very scared when I decide to pick up a book that she wants me to read because she's afraid I'm gonna hate it. But I feel like it's also giving like, you know, good September vibes. So let's just hope that I like it and it fits for this prompt. Next up, I have read a book from my shelf without a person on the cover. I actually think I might try this book out. This is a book that my mom let me borrow. She said she thought that I would like it, and it doesn't look like there's any people on the cover, but it's called The True Story of an Amish Youth Entangled in the Web of a Cult. So we're gonna do that without the person on the cover. Okay, the last one is actually a library book, and it says read a book that is popular or trending or hyped right now. I feel like my buddy read would actually work for that. Home is where the bodies are. I feel like I've seen that everywhere because of people just raving about it. And I was going to get my copy at the library, both on Libby for the audiobook, and I was gonna get the physical copy this month. So I'm gonna do Home is Where the Bodies Are. I've also been working my way through the Laura Ingalls Wilder series. That should be a video that is coming out here in September because I'm about halfway through the series. And so I didn't like add that to my wrap up because I'm gonna just have a whole video about it. I've been really loving the series. This is all 5 stars to me. That's it for this video. I hope you guys really enjoyed it, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye everyone.